Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Bros podcast, episode number 38. I am Brendan. I'm alone. No. All right, so this past weekend, we had another fight night. Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. Pretty fun fight in that, Kevin Holland makes it fun because he talks, not crap, he doesn't really talk smack. It's more just like conversation while he's in there, and he's kind of just, I wouldn't even say it's like Nick or Nate Diaz. It's just, whatever's on his mind, he's just saying. And like that includes hey, that was a pretty good takedown. Oh man, you're good. Or like, man, I respect it. Like all things like that. If you go watch his highlight reel especially when he fought Thiago Santos, it was really funny. But yeah, so Derek Brunson got the win, pretty dominant win in that. And he managed to just take him down constantly and take advantage also of any opportunity where he was being, kind of sloppy. Kevin Holland fell down early in the first round. And, Brunson spent most of the first round on top. Holland cracked Brunson in the second round and almost knocked him out. But then Brunson got a takedown and rode that round on top. Same thing. Pretty much only the second round went to Holland. Everything else is just straight Brunson. So this makes 4 in a row for Derek Brunson. And let's see. Just real quick, let's go over because I'm pretty sure... Yeah, Elias Theodoro. Yeah, so his last loss came to Izzy. Before that, it was Jacare. Right, and this was, 2018 Jacare, so we're talking about, someone who's looking to challenge for the belt still, pretty much. But he lost to Jacare, then Izzy, beats Elias Theodoro, beats Ian Heinisch, knocks out Edmund Shabazian, who, had a lot of hype behind him, and then gets a win over Kevin Holland, who was on a 5-fight win streak. So it was a pretty big win for him as well. What does this mean for him right now? Being that he's on a 4-fight win streak. His last loss was to the champ. And his current ranking before this weekend was number 7. Probably one more fight. Maybe against Jared Cannonier. I wouldn't mind watching him versus Darren Till, Marvin Vettori, Jack Hermanson. Kelvin's fighting this weekend. Right? No, not this weekend. He's fighting Robert Whittaker next month. That's what it is. Oh, yeah. Real quick. Let's take a segue here. What the hell? So, for those of you guys who don't know, Paulo Costa was supposed to fight Robert Whittaker next month. And Paulo Costa dropped out of the fight. And so there's lots of reasons you could pull out a fight. An injury during camp, maybe, you've got some family things going on, schedule isn't lining up, you could have like a severe sickness and it's just not allow you to train for an extended period of time, certain weather conditions. I'm giving all the excuses that you could possibly give, and people would be like, oh, okay. But more than a month out of the fight, Paulo Costa pulls out and says, I can't fight him because I have the flu. Really, dude? I mean, yes, could Paulo Costa kick my ass? Most likely. In fact, I guarantee you he could. There is no way in hell I win a fight against him. And it's not just size, it's skill, right? Toughness, all those things. He's a professional fighter, okay? So don't come at me and be like, oh, well, you get in there and do it. No. I understand that I couldn't, and I don't. But in the context of what he does for a job, what the other people, his colleagues, are doing for their job, how many times have we ever seen this happen? In recent history or, in the entire history of the UFC, do you remember a time where someone pulled out of a fight a month out because they had the flu? And maybe there is a time like this. One doesn't come to my mind, but maybe there is. Couple that with the fact that he was highly touted going into the Izzy fight. He was supposed to go in there and be a marauder and take him out, especially coming off that split decision win over Yoel Romero in like the fight of the year candidate, where two sloppy guys are just swinging punches at each other with no cardio. That's not fight of the year, okay? Was it fun to watch? Absolutely. But there was very little skill involved in just winging. Like, Paulo Costa is a forward pressure, loopy, hook throwing puncher, and Yoel Romero is a sloppy, lean on you, throw big winging punches type of fighter, and neither one of them has really good cardio. So, it turned into a really sloppy fight. That was fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, coming from that fight, being highly touted, coming in there, he's supposed to knock out Izzy. He's supposed to go in there and give Izzy a big test. Like, I'm going to come forward. I'm going to make sure he fights, and then just stand still. So we remember how that fight went, where he literally got humped, after being TKO'd. So after that fight, we heard, oh, my knee was busted up and my back hurt. Those are normal things. It's not my favorite thing to hear from a fighter, but, it's one of those things where, especially during a title fight, you're like, hey, I wasn't 100%, and I think a lot of that might have been his manager saying those things. You come out, you say, I wasn't 100% for this fight. That's not who I am. I didn't fight to the best of my abilities because I just didn't have it with me that night. So the often counter to that is nobody goes into a fight 100%, right? And that's generally believed to be true, that everybody's always injured. Going into a fight. There's always some sort of injury, a nagging injury, right? Your toe isn't feeling so good. Your ankle's been screwed up for a week. Your wrists, your fingers, your knees are kind of sore. You've been cutting weight and it's causing your joints to dry out and everything just hurts, right? Nobody feels 100% going into a fight. So generally speaking, when someone starts to bring up the excuses afterwards, it's looked down upon. But you can also give them a little bit of leeway. Until recently, you hear, I drank too much wine beforehand and I didn't get a lot of sleep and I was really stressed out. Now you're starting to get into some bullshit. Like, that's crap, dude. Even if those are things that did happen, from Paulo Costa, that is, even if those things are actually what transpired, you don't use that as an excuse to say, I didn't fight at my best because I drank too much wine. Again, that could be true, and that's fine. This shit happens. People make mistakes. And if he were to do it in a laughing, joking way, how Jon Jones plays off the Coke thing, hey, I was doing Coke a week before and I still beat you, DC. I didn't train at all and I still beat, and those were wins, so it's different. But coming off of a loss, you can be like, I just didn't take it as seriously as I should have. I took it too light. Or, I was really stressed out and I tried to deal with it and it just didn't work for me. I'm going to come around and do better next time. Kind of with a positive attitude, you're saying you screwed up. Therefore, I'm really trying to, correct that and make a better effort for next time. That's not the vibe that I'm getting. The vibe is excuse. That's why Izzy won. Not that Izzy was the better fighter, not that Izzy is extremely skilled. It's that, I drank too much wine, my knee hurt, my back was hurting, I couldn't do cardio because of this, I was super tired, that's not me, oh, darn, and, that's why I lost, is because of all those things. I'm sure those factors did play into why he lost, okay? Regardless of whether or not they happened, I don't care. All right, so now, with all that being said, add on top of that, he pulls out of a fight against Robert Whittaker a month out when he has the flu. I know it's not like I had a ton of respect or I disrespected this guy or I had no respect or whatever, however you want to put it. I didn't really care about Paulo Costa, personally outside, because it was neither here nor there for me. Or he was neither here nor there for me. He was just a fun fighter to watch, who's got some decent skills, and, he was an interesting matchup for some people. But now, after this crap, no. And I'm not saying you have to go in there and, ruin your body and fight through illness and then fight through injuries just to get in there and then perform 50% of what you did. I took this fight sitting at about 30%. If you guys remember that one. Anyway, I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm not saying you have to. But pulling out of a fight, a number one contender bout, I might add, is that's what that is. Paulo Costa is ranked number 2. Robert Whittaker is ranked number 1. The winner of that fight is going to be the number one contender. And he pulls out of that fight because he has a flu a month out. Now, he might have some other problems, like if he came out and said, hey, like I tore my ACL, or, I have bursitis, my labrum's torn, I'm just naming joints and like tendons and stuff. Like, it's stupid. I could do this all day. It's so dumb. But the point is, like, if he said any of those things, like, that would be more reasonable than I got sick, which, the flu lasts like a week? Even if he said he tested positive for COVID and he had it, which maybe he is, I don't know. The point is, he's pulling out of a fight a month ahead of time, an opportunity that would probably given him another title shot if he won. I don't think he would be jumping the line necessarily because, he is the number 2 contender and he's taking on the number 1 contender. So he's justified in getting the next title shot after that. And he's giving that up because he's a little sick. Yeah, I have I don't care about him, and I don't, from now on, unless he really turns around, like his attitude, the way he approaches the fight game, unless he turns that around, pretty dramatically, I just don't care about him. Like, I'm okay if he's completely out of the picture at this point. I don't like it. I have no place in my, fandom brain for fighters like that. And I know it sounds like I'm being a little hard on someone just because they're sick or whatever, but that's not what it is. It's everything else that I mentioned, that entire story that led up to that, with him complaining and making excuses and things like that, and basically downplaying the accomplishments of his opponent instead of playing up his opponent. Because we've seen it before. If you downplay the accomplishments of your opponent after a loss, or even after a win, right? But especially after a loss, it all comes off as sour grapes. Like, you're just making excuses as to why you didn't win. Okay? Instead of pumping up your opponent and touting their greatness. Because if you do that, now all of a sudden it comes off as respectful, and that's why you lost, because you fought one of the best in the world, if not the best fighter in the world if you're fighting for a title, right? He lost in a title fight against arguably the best middleweight in the world. There's nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to just that outcome. And if you said, hey, it wasn't my night, I had some injuries going in, it didn't help, I wasn't able to train at 100%, and I'm going to work my way back, and I'm going to get back in there, I'm going to show you what I can really do. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you play up the abilities of your opponent afterwards, because that just makes you look stronger. Right? And if you are on the flip side, right, and you're the winner of a fight and you play up the skills of the person you just happened to beat, now all of a sudden you look even better. It's always beneficial to pump up your opponents, win, lose, or draw, because it just makes you look better. Anytime you start to downplay, if you won, or when you win and you downplay the accomplishments or abilities of your opponent, you can kind of sound like a douche. But it's more acceptable because you won and you're like, hey, I'm way better than him, and this is why. So it's a little different, and you're allowed to do that. It's not necessarily downplaying. It's just showing, you just showed why you're better, but then you can just explain afterwards in kind of like a hyperbolic type of way, just using certain words that are not very positive. I'm just trying to avoid saying specific things because I don't want to call out certain fighters or anything like that. Not that I'm afraid. It's just that's not what this is about. It's literally just if you make excuses like that and you do all these things and then all of a sudden you have to pull out of a fight because you're a little sick a month out, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, get your shit together. Come on now. So now we have Kelvin Gastelum stepping up and fighting Robert Whittaker, which is an amazing fight. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm actually probably more excited for that fight because Kelvin Gastelum is the consummate competitor. He's not. He hasn't always made weight, and that's when he was fighting at welterweight, right? He made some mistakes down there. He just wasn't making weight. But since he's been to middleweight, he's been doing really good. He took Izzy to the brink. He's a really good middleweight. Anyway, all right. So that was our main event. Derek Brunson looking great out there. Kevin Holland a little bit back to the drawing board. Probably needs to. Went off on a long tangent there, probably like 20 minutes? Holy moly. I don't know, 10 minutes. Anyway, Kevin Holland, I think he's still going to be a contender. I think he still is a contender. I think he's a great stylistic matchup for Izzy. Not necessarily that he would beat him. I just think that because Izzy's not going for takedowns historically. I mean, he could change it up all of a sudden and throw everybody for a loop and just go and take Holland down. But I think Holland has a great stylistic matchup against a lot of competitors in the middleweight division who are ranked above him right now. Uriah Hall, I think that'd be a fun fight. He just fought Kelvin. Oh, no, he didn't fight. He saw Kelvin Gastelum would be a fun fight. Derek Brunson, he just fought. Jack Hermanson might be a little more difficult. Marvin Vettori would be a freaking banging fight. Darren Till, banging fight. Jared Cannonier, awesome fight. Paul Acosta, I'd love to see that too. Robert Whittaker, probably a hard fight for him, but also awesome. I think he makes great fights up there, and it's going to be really fun. Based off of his current ranking, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Chris Weidman. Maybe I don't remember if Chris Weidman's supposed to be fighting Uriah Hall soon, or I forget who he's supposed to be fighting. But this will give, Holland a way back against a really good wrestler, right? So that's was shown to be his weakness, not being able to stay off his back. So Kevin Holland, like I said, just back to the drawing board, just a little bit, fine tune some things. I don't think they kept commenting and saying like, oh, he needs to add more urgency and be more, he needs to hit the urgency button and blah, 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 blah. Maybe, but I don't think he should change everything about the way he fights. I think him being so relaxed in there is part of his demeanor, mystique, like it makes him who he is. And I don't want him to change that and try to become something that he's not, in order to chase the fact that he got taken down. If he doesn't get taken down in that fight, I think he wins, like super easy. I know that's a big if, but what I'm saying is like, if he wants to get off his back, or maybe he needs to just be a little bit more aggressive off his back, that kind of stuff, because he was very, very comfortable staying there and working. It just doesn't get you wins as far as decisions go. Being comfortable off your back without chasing a ton of submissions or doing a ton of damage. That's how he finished Jacare, though. He finished Jacare with punches from his back. Like that's incredible. All right, in the co-main event, we had Max Payne Griffin fighting Kenan Song. He cracked Song really hard with the right hand and put him down. It was fun fight while it lasted. They both hit really hard. Women's strawweight fight, that was really weird. Montserrat Ruiz beating Cheyenne Baez. It was just constant. It was very strange. And then they were angry with each other afterwards. They had him in what is that called? Like it's something that you only see in women's MMA, and I brought this up before. Like the headlock, right? The over the back of the head, the head and arm lock, and then they flip them down, and she just held her there and then she was trying to flip her legs over. It just looked so sloppy. Adrien Yanez hitting hard against Gustavo Lopez, knocking him out in the third round. Tai Tuivasa getting a big knockout against Gray. A great picture. Harry Hunsucker. Unfortunate name, right? It's just, I mean, maybe that's why some people become fighters. But Tai Tuivasa needed another win. He's 12-3 now. He hits really hard. I think he has some cardio issues. His chin isn't the best, and but he hits really hard. He looked in better shape, so that's good. Boring fight. Bantamweight. Santos. The rest of the stuff on the prelims, not super exciting. I mean, there was a couple finishes, but more importantly is what's coming up next week. All right. Stipe Miocic fighting Francis Ngannou. Okay. All right, so that would be, let's see, the 27th? Yeah, the 27th of March, Saturday. We got Stipe Miocic defending his belt again against Francis Ngannou. So the last time they fought, Francis came in at the 265-pound limit. He had to cut weight to make 265. He came in, tried knocking out Stipe very early on. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. One of the things that he might have changed, and that I'm hoping that he changed, is keeping the aggression while also measuring the amount of output that he's going to have, especially early on. It's going to be interesting to see, because he's been finishing everybody again. He said he's changed and we've seen improvements, but all of his fights are ending in the first 40 seconds. Damn it! Like, it's hard to say if the fight's going to go any different. Like, my gut tells me yes. My gut tells me, this is hard for me to say because I'm a huge Stipe fan, but like, my gut tells me that Francis catches Stipe this time and puts him out. Because Stipe just, like, I mean, when he got caught by DC, and that's the thing, is like, I don't know if that first fight took a lot off of Stipe's chin, or if his chin's just gone now, or maybe it was never that great, and it's just, because he took some bombs from Francis in that first fight. It's just, I don't know. It's going to be, it's so hard for me to be confident in picking either one of these guys, because we haven't seen Francis fight more than like 40 seconds in the past like 4 fights or whatever. And we haven't seen, Stipe hold up to big punches because he's only fought DC. And like, he got knocked out the first time, and the second time, like, he was eating punches. Granted, he was eating punches the second time in that second fight versus DC when he got his belt back. Right? So there was, oh wait, hold on. I think I'm forgetting a fight. Maybe I'm crazy. Oh yeah, now we have to worry about Jon Jones at heavyweight. Forgot about that. Yeah, okay, no, I wasn't misremembering it. So remember, he gets knocked out by DC. Then he comes back and knocks DC out. And then they had that long decision fight last year in August. Yes. And he's not fighting very often. I don't like that. Anyway, well, I just don't like it. So, my gut tells me Francis wins this fight. It's not that I'm not rooting for Francis. I really like Francis. I think he's a fun, like, really nice guy. I think I love his fight style. I love how freakish his power is, and that he's been working really hard at MMA to become better. And my dream is to see 5 rounds of fighting. That's what I want to see. And in my head, the advantage obviously goes to Stipe. But what I would like to see is a back and forth 5-round fight. And then the winner is who the winner is. I probably, I want to see Stipe get one more win, and then ride off into the sunset and leave the belt vacant because we have Jon Jones waiting in the wings. And I wouldn't mind seeing Francis versus Jon, right? Derek Lewis versus Jon Jones, Derek Lewis versus Francis again. Like, all that stuff's good, but I think Stipe can ride off into the sunset being probably one of, if not the best UFC heavyweight of all time. I mean, the argument was made for DC after DC knocked out Stipe, right? But then Stipe beat him twice. So I don't think there's an argument there anymore. I mean, I don't know how you say he's not one of, if not the best UFC heavyweight of all time. UFC heavyweight, not the best heavyweight of all time, okay? We all know Fedor is probably the best heavyweight of all time. Don't give me crap about Kane. He wasn't. He didn't fight enough. We don't have a large enough body of evidence to show that he was the best, right? His fights were very impressive and his wins were very impressive. It's just we don't have a large body of fights to gauge was he, because this whole C-level Kane thing, right? When he lost to oh, good grief, Fabricio Verdum, right? He lost that fight. Then he did get knocked out by Francis Ngannou. Okay? Like, those are losses on his record. And they say, oh, but that wasn't him back in the... Okay, but he was still fighting, and he didn't put together enough wins as the champion to show that he was, the best heavyweight of all time. We can go back in history and find, like, a Kevin Randleman fight where, like, oh, now that's the best heavyweight of all time. Was it, though? Because it's just one fight against one other fighter. You can say he had the best performance of all time, or that fight right there was the best of all time, that kind of thing. But you can't say off of 3 or 4 performances like he's the best fighter of all time, because it's just not a large enough body of evidence, like I said. That's the biggest argument for Jon Jones. The biggest argument for GSP and Anderson Silva is the huge body of evidence they have presented to you, showing you that they're the best of all time. Their years of dominance as the champion, and I'm not the biggest Jon Jones fan. I've become more. We talked about this not recently because he hasn't fought recently, but my mood on Jon Jones and my feelings has changed more to, I hope that his life and his family go really well in the future. I don't care so much about the things he's done in the past. I've explained very clearly why I think that they happened the way they did, and I think the people around him have failed him greatly. But that being said, I think Jon Jones is one of the greatest fighters of all time. For my money, it's still GSP. I think who he was beating, how he was beating them, and how little damage he took up until like the very end. And because he beat every single fighter that he fought, right? He avenged both of his losses on his record. Now obviously Jon Jones has beat every person because he's, essentially undefeated. So technically, I guess, like Matt Hamill, has that weird DQ win against him, but everybody says like, oh, he's beaten every fighter. That's fine too. I mean, he broke the rules. Steve Mazzagatti kind of made a really weird decision in calling the fight like that, so whatever. Anyway, so with all that being said, I think Stipe is one of the greatest of all time, win, lose, or draw this weekend. I think I'm rooting for a 5-round fight. I want to see an extended show of skills. That's what I really want from this fight. And I know that's asking a lot from heavyweights, but that's kind of what I want to see. Because I do want to see, if Francis really has changed. Because, like, let's say Francis goes out there and knocks Stipe out in 10 seconds. What did we learn about Francis? That he hits really hard early on in fights? Something that we already knew. How are we supposed to, like, gauge what he's changed? And I understand that, like, if that's all he has to do for the rest of his career is knock people out in 20 seconds and he just does that, he doesn't need to do anything else. And that's fine. It's just I want to see the unbeatable Francis. I want to see him get taken to the brink and be like, no, listen, I've been working on my cardio. You're not going to just take me down and hold me down for 25 minutes. Look what I can do. That's what I want to see. Yeah, anyway, it's going to be fun. Probably, like I said, my gut's telling me Francis. I don't want to put a percentage on it, but my gut's telling me Francis. See, in the co-main event, Tyron Woodley fighting against Vicente Luque. I don't know. Vicente is a good striker. He puts on exciting fights usually. Tyron Woodley does not do that. Tyron Woodley fights off his back foot. He's a very boring fighter. What do you think this fight's going to turn out being? Do you think Tyron Woodley's going to come out there and blow his doors off? Could. Do you think Tyron Woodley's going to stand on his back foot, move slowly back to the fence, and try to catch one big shot against Vicente? Most likely. Do you think if he doesn't get that shot, it's going to be a really boring fight? Probably. I really don't care. I mean, Tyron Woodley has to show him. If Tyron Woodley comes out and looks like Tyron Woodley who beat Robbie Lawler, which is the one Tyron Woodley, because before that it was, he beat when he knocked out Josh Koscheck and stuff like that, or when he had that hard fight against the Natural Born Killer, Carlos Condit, when he had that fight where Carlos Condit blew out his knee, whatever. He had a couple good fights. Other than that, he was Tyron Woodley's a very cerebral fighter. Don't get me wrong. It's just the amount of crap that he has talked and the amount of disagreements he's had and the way he's talked about being the champion and talking about how everybody disrespects him. He's just throwing a pity party for himself constantly. Whether it's true or not, that's saying it constantly doesn't help. And it doesn't make him look any better when he loses, especially boring fights. So hopefully he turns it around. Hopefully he's back in the game. Hopefully he's refocused and he wants to be in there, because that's not what we've seen lately. All right. Bantamweight, we got Sean O'Malley fighting Thomas Almeida. Thomas Almeida hits really hard. He's a forward fighter, blah, blah, blah. Sean O'Malley is a lot of noise. I don't know. Sean O'Malley hits hard too, and he's really good. It's just he seems fragile, which is fine. I'm not criticizing him for being that, but he also makes excuses. He was that's not the first time that he's been sat down because something was wrong with his legs. This time he took a calf kick and his ankle went dead, and he couldn't control his foot. That's fine. It happens. But again, he just downplays Cheeto Vera and saying he doesn't blah, 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 blah. It's just, you can't keep doing that stuff, man. It's so annoying. He's walking around still undefeated. No, you're not. You lost, man. Come on. Don't do that. And I used to think he was a fun guy because, especially during quarantine, he was posting those, smoking weed and training videos. I think that was pretty funny. He seemed like he was a interesting guy. And I don't listen to his podcast, and I'm not interested in it. I'm not against it or anything. I haven't really heard much from it, so I'm not going to pass judgment on something that I have no information about. But, is his focus fighting? Is his focus just being popular? It's going to be... I want to see what he does against Thomas Almeida, because Thomas Almeida is a really good fighter. When he knocked out Eddie Wineland, that's an aged Eddie Wineland, who just can't take a punch anymore, unfortunately. He should have lost that fight that the guy, I forget who he beat, but the guy had him down on the ground and jumped into his guard instead of just saying, no, stand up, and he wouldn't have been able to stand up, and then he would have lost. So Sean O'Malley, essentially, he's almost lost 2 fights because his legs gave out on him. Jamie Malarkey versus Kama Worthy, opening up the main card. Let's see. We got William Knight on the prelims versus Alonzo Menafield. Some light heavyweights. Jessica Penne versus Hannah Goldie. Jessica Penne's still fighting in the UFC? I did not know that. Why are there only 2 fights on the prelims? And then the early prelims have 5 fights. Huh. Jared Gorin versus Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Good luck. Modestas Bukauskas versus Michael Oleksiejczuk. I'm not going to even try. Nope. Nope. Jillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick. Be fun. Shane Young, Omar Morales, and Marc-Andre Barra versus Abu Azatur. Okay. I said that the whitest way possible. Yeah, so the main event's going to be fun. It's a very important main event. If Stipe gets this win, it's hard to deny him the fact that he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Francis goes in there and blows his doors off, knocks him out, or has a competitive fight over 5 rounds and gets the decision victory, which is probably like the least likely of all the scenarios, right? Francis winning by decision. If he gets that win and then he has a run as champ, it might be hard to argue that Francis isn't the heavyweight champ. And then that's Francis only has 2 losses in the UFC. One of them was to Derek Lewis in the most, one of, if not the most boring fight in the UFC where nobody won. Let's be honest. Right? Nobody threw anything. It was horrendous. And not just because we hyped it up as it was all going to be all action, these hard-hitting heavyweights. It was bad, regardless of hype. It was just a horrible fight. I might have complained earlier about, calling for fight of the year candidates with sloppy people throwing punches, but I'll take that 1,000 times out of 1,000 over seeing what Francis... Because here's the other thing. Watching Stephen Thompson fight Tyron Woodley both times, where Stephen Thompson's measured, trying to push in, be slightly aggressive without going too far, and only getting caught by Tyron Woodley twice in 2 fights. Really, I think 2 big punches in 2 fights. That's how Tyron Woodley kept his belt. That first fight I gave to Stephen Thompson. But anyway, so watching that, where you have a cerebral fighter waiting on the outside, waiting for his opportunity, it wasn't my favorite thing, especially because of how much crap he was talking and saying he was disrespected and all that other stuff. It wasn't my favorite. Plus, I don't think the judges got the decision right the first time. Anyway, watching that, even though it's technically boring, right? Because there's not a lot, or not technically boring, sorry. It's visually boring. It's technically way more interesting than watching Francis fight Derek Lewis, 2 of the hardest hitting people ever to step foot in the octagon, and just stand there. You don't get that in Mark Hunt fights, do you? I mean, he has an up and down record. I mean, he's almost a 50-50 fighter. But he says he's going to go in. He know what he's going to do. He's going to go in there and try to knock you out. He doesn't put on boring fights. And he's been beat pretty viciously a couple of times. Like Stipe, I think, set a record for most strikes landed against him in that fight. That's what I'm saying. It's just there's certain fighters where... And Francis now, we haven't seen that again because he hasn't fought any hard hitters. And, he's not gun shy anymore. And that was coming off of his first real loss against, in the UFC, or the first loss in the UFC against Stipe. So, Francis really only lost to arguably the greatest of this generation, if not the greatest heavyweight of all time right now, Stipe, and a BS fight where he was just totally out of it. Right? And nobody won that fight. It was I would say it was a razor close decision of who won because nobody did. There was no punches thrown. I think they threw 10 punches over 3 rounds combined? It was something crazy like that. It doesn't matter what it was, and I don't even think I'm being hyperbolic. I think I'm being accurate when I said it was 10 punches. That's ridiculous. They were making jokes the next fight. Hey, they've already thrown more punches in this fight. And it was 5 seconds in. They've already thrown more punches in this fight than the entire Francis Derek Lewis fight. So it's one of those things where if Francis can get a win this weekend and Francis defends his belt 2 or 3 times, we can already have the discussion where Francis is the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Because I don't know if the UFC wants to give Stipe an immediate rematch. Because they didn't want to give it to him against DC. I get why. Because there's a good chance Stipe was going to win and take DC's crown. And that's what he did. You know? DC went out there trying to fight the same fight. It didn't work. Didn't work the second time. Didn't work the third time either. You know, Stipe is just a better fighter than Daniel Cormier when they fought. Maybe DC from 8 years ago could have beat Stipe. Maybe. And maybe Stipe from 5 years ago could beat DC from 8 years ago. Maybe. But when they fought, the times that they fought, Stipe won 2 of the 3 fights. He's better. Inarguably, he's better. Anyway, this weekend is going to be really interesting for that. Tyron Woodley, it's going to be interesting to see if he's still the Tyron Woodley that we've seen the last 3 fights. Sean O'Malley, hopefully his body holds up. You know, I'm rooting for everybody to just have, like, I like seeing skills. I like seeing fun fighters like Sean O'Malley. When he gets in there, he's wild. He's crazy. It's fun to watch. Yeah, it's going to be a good fight. Good fight night. Sorry, not fight night. It's good. It's UFC 260. All right. Again, this one's a little shorter. Not a lot of pushback here. Oh, also, hold on. Wait, before we go away. Can we talk a little bit about why the hell Jorge Masvidal is fighting? I mean, we can get to it. I'll talk to it again, but I just want to, because I know it just happened. Can we talk about how Jorge Masvidal is getting another title shot against a guy he just lost to when he had the opportunity to fight him? All 5 rounds he lost. It was not close. Why does he get another opportunity? I have never seen this in the history of the UFC. Them being this blatantly obvious about what they're going after. Have I seen them do obvious things in the past when it was you can call it a cash grab, but they're trying to make money, and I'm not criticizing them for being a business. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying there is no argument you could make to me right now that I would accept that Jorge Masvidal is the most deserving title contender in the welterweight division. Let me throw some more out there for you. Colby Covington, was he more competitive against Kamaru Usman? Because he lost to him last. Why is he not getting the title shot? That was his last fight, was against Kamaru Usman. It was a competitive fight in which some judges had Colby up in that fight in the last round when Usman did get the finish. No one gave the fight to Jorge Masvidal. No one gave him a fucking round. Why is he getting the title shot? Also, Colby is ranked number 1 as he's the number 1 contender. All right? So how about him? Gilbert Burns just came off a loss. He dropped Usman in the first round. He put Usman on his ass. Then he fell down and got kicked in the butt and then, gassed out and whatever, and they ended up losing. Kamaru's a tough dude. Kamaru's a really tough dude and a great fighter and ends up beating Gilbert Burns. The point is, why is Burns not getting the title shot? He lost to Usman last. He had a more competitive fight against Kamaru. Leon Edwards. He was supposed to get the title shot, but he got, it was a DQ, no contest. Why isn't he getting the title shot? He's coming off of 3 or 4 wins or whatever. He hasn't really had a loss in the UFC. Why isn't he getting the title shot against Kamaru? Because that's what they were talking about. And I'm not one of those people who believe he does deserve the title shot. Then you have Jorge Masvidal ranked number 4 for God knows what reason. Stephen Thompson ranked number 5. Stephen Thompson, I believe, is on a 4-fight win streak, isn't? Stephen Thompson. I think he's on a 4-fight win streak. Oh, wow. Never mind. Forget what I said. 2-fight win streak. Oh, that's why. Okay. So, he lost to Tyron Woodley back in 2017. He beat Jorge Masvidal in 2017. Gets a bullshit loss to Darren Till, which we've talked about many times. Gets knocked out by Anthony Pettis. That was a real loss. Then he beats Vicente Luque, who's fighting this weekend. And then he beats Jeff Neal. He's coming off of 2 wins in a row. and he's ranked number 5. Why isn't he getting the title shot? He's coming off of 2 wins. That's more than Jorge. Jorge's last win was against Nate Diaz. Where's Nate Diaz ranked? I'll give you a second if you want to search it. I'll just tell you. He's not. He's not even ranked. They fought for some stupid BS BMF belt that doesn't exist. It's not a real thing because it's never on the line. Like, this is stupid. Michael Chiesa's coming off a big win. Why isn't he getting the title shot? And why do any of them have to get the title next? Let it play out. Let them fight each other. Give Leon Edwards another fight. He said he's good to go. Let's go. Have him fight Burns. Have him fight Covington. Have Covington fight Thompson or Masvidal. Have one of them fight. Why does Kamaru need to fight right now? He just fought. Like, why? Not that they're not fighting right now. It's like scheduled for, I think, for April or May. But what I'm saying is, like, why do you need to schedule it right now against one of them? Have one of those other guys fight first. Ugh. So frustrating. Anyway, that's the last thing I'm going to say on. I hate to end on a sour note. All right. Yep, that's pretty much it. As always, if you like what I am saying here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know. God, I hate saying that. Yeah, I really do appreciate you guys making it all the way to the end and listen to me rant over here. If you ever want to comment on the stuff, you're more than welcome to. Like, let's get a discussion going. If you want to discuss MMA with me, you're more than welcome. If you want to send me suggestions, you're more than welcome to do it in the comments below. You can send an email to superlunchbros.com. Superlunchbros at gmail.com. Send it to us. And if I don't write back, I'll try to comment on it the next time we make a video. We're making them every week. Making them on Sunday, releasing on Sunday night. So trying to do that more consistently. I appreciate all you guys. I hope everybody's hanging in there. Things are getting better. The weather's changing, turning out pretty nice here around Chicago. So hoping people are getting outside more, not cooped up in their house as much this year. Getting back to life as usual, life as normal. Getting back to work, that kind of stuff for everybody. So, all right, I appreciate you all, and I hope everybody has an awesome day.